if we say take a deep breath, people breathe into their shoulders. They're like, but there's no lungs in your shoulders, friend. Like there's literally no lungs in your shoulders. So for a lot of us, we're just panic breathers. You know what I mean? There's like, you don't even know how to take a deep breath.
Hey guys, welcome to our SoulFam Podcast, where I interview space holders from all over the world. I'm your host. My name is Karolina, and I am the Connection Catalyst. I help spiritual entrepreneurs experience deeper connection with themselves, with others, and with the universe. Today on the show, we have Shanila Sattar, the Creatix of Flow Breathwork Facilitator Training and AlwaysPlay Studio, as well as the author of Breathe. Welcome to the show, Shanila. How are you doing?
Hey, thank you for having me.
I am so excited to talk to you because I love to talk with the authors about their books and just discover what is there, at least a little bit of, a tip of the iceberg that we can talk about on the podcast. And I'm really curious about your story. How did you get to dive into breathing so much? And how did you get to be so passionate about so much that you actually are the creatives of the facilitator training, right? Of breathing. So, what has started this journey? What has inspired you to do this for life?
I mean, breathing is something that if we're alive, all of us do. And I think it's only natural that we actually learn what breathing does for us. And the truth of it is that there's so many different things breathing does. And for me, back in the day, I was experiencing a lot of different illnesses, anxiety, depression, stress. My hair was falling out. My stomach was doing all these wild things. I was having panic attacks, and I just didn't have any holistic healing tools for myself. And every time I would go to the doctor, especially in my early 20s, mid 20s, late 20s, anytime I would go, it was always dismissed as like, oh, these are hormones, or this is stress, or this is, very, very, very normal. And we were never getting to the roots of why these illnesses were kind of showing up in my body. And so for me, this journey into breath work and training breathwork facilitators, writing a book about breathing, is to really just educate ourselves on this very simple thing that all of us do, the thing that is breathing. If we're alive, then we're breathing. And to understand just a little bit more about how we can manipulate and how we can adjust the way that we're breathing to feel different things. So in basics, there are so many different styles of breath work and breathing techniques that do different things for your body. There's styles that activate your body, so it makes you energized, it activates. There's healing techniques. There's also techniques that restore your body. So things that help you calm down, restore your nervous system, restore your body, help you kind of rest and relax, put you into this parasympathetic nervous state where your body has the ability to heal itself, has its ability to improve digestion, immunity, chemical production, produce serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin, trace amounts of DNC, all the beautiful things. But all breath work is not created equal. So anytime we're talking about like, hey, like what, you teach breathing, you teach breath work, or like you teach facilitators, the truth of the matter is there's over 200 breath work styles. There's 200 different breathwork techniques. So ancient traditions like yoga, martial arts, shamanic cultures who really relied on ceremonial and ritual practices of using breathing used a specific style of breathwork to do a thing that they wanted to do. So certain communities, they were trying to rest and relax. Certain communities, they were trying to get, activated into higher states of consciousness and talk to God and talk to spirits and talk to, a higher consciousness. Some communities, they were like, we just need to cool down our body. So they were regulating their temperature. Some communities, they were like, we need to improve our digestion. So they were doing styles of breathwork that way. So why does it matter in today's world is the point. It's like, it's cool that we know all these different cultures do different things, but why does it matter to us today in our real life world where, we're experiencing a lot of anxiety and stress and panic from just everyday things. The culture and the society brings about so much pressure on ourselves. How can we go through this life with feeling a little bit more calm, a little bit more peace, a little bit more stable, a little bit more grounded, get better sleep, get better chemicals, get better all the nice things that come without relying on anything that's outside of ourselves than our own breath. So for me, that's the dream. Like, wow, you don't need anything from outside of ourselves. So I got into learning more about these techniques and all the different things that they do. And for my own healing, for my own growth, all these techniques changed my life. So to learn how to regulate my breath to be able to sleep better changed my life. The way to regulate my breath when I'm feeling really reactive or mean or feeling like anxious, or I feel like there's a lot of things going on in my mind and I just can't shut my mind off, that helped my life. To learn a technique that can help support me through that, to help how to communicate with each other, to help my body digest food better, to help. So because I was noticing all these different things that were helping me, I felt motivated to kind of share with other people too. There's plenty of people in my life who never had access to holistic health and holistic well-being. And for me, as an immigrant to the United States, my family, my culture, my community, we didn't have a lot of access to this type of information. We didn't really know, the science behind breath work and the holistics behind breath work. Mental health is not really talked about, emotional health is not really talked about. There's a lot of taboo, conversations. And for me, it became very important to kind of just make it not so inaccessible to people, not make it so inaccessible that like breathwork is this like whole like deep healing kind of transformative thing. It is, if that's the style of breathwork you're doing. But there's also other things that, for example, in the book Breathe, I take out 33 breathwork practices that are for mood, energy healing, grounding, relaxation, and for sleep. And so I think about, how can my mom, who's a teacher, use this for her kids in kindergarten, right? Like her as a teacher, how can she show this and use this in an applied way? How can these therapists who train with me teach techniques to their clients that aren't just an hour long breathwork session, hour long meditation session? It's these very applied useful techniques that people can take and be able to use right away and see results from it right away. So that became kind of just like my gist. I wanted to empower people to be able to use these techniques and teach them also how to teach them to other people. So it's one thing that I teach breathwork facilitators. I have a certification program that does that. But how do the people who learn from me also get to spread that information into their communities? So how are the therapists teaching that? How are the teachers teaching that? How are the healers teaching that? How are the nurses and then the doulas and the doctors and the public health people, how are they being able to feel empowered from the tools that they have and share it with their community?
That sounds amazing. It's like a domino effect, right? Because you can teach them, and then they can spread it out, and then these people learn, and then they can spread it out even further. And yeah, it's, as you said, it's such a simple thing because we are breathing all the time. So if we just bring awareness to it, if we just do it consciously, it can literally change everything. And yeah, thank you so much for sharing your journey. It's really amazing, and I can really feel that it has changed your life. You're really passionate about it, and I'm curious to know at least a few techniques. So, for example, what kind of technique would you recommend for the digestive system?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. And the thing is, like, it's one of these things, like, the reason we have breathwork practitioners and facilitators is because, yes, there are so many things that you can do for yourself, but because you're a whole person that has so many other variables that are working with you, like your emotional health, your mental health, your physical health, your spiritual health, your energetic health, your financial health, all these different parts of your energetic body are always working together. So some technique that might work for one person isn't like the be all end all technique for every single person, but there are kind of overarching techniques. So for example, if you're somebody who has slow digestion, you're going to do a completely different technique than somebody who has a fast digestion. If you're somebody who has a fiery digestion versus somebody who has a cooler digestion. So it kind of becomes like a more complicated question. And that's part of the breathwork education, is that there isn't a one size fit all answer. It's like this one technique is for digestion or this one technique is for mood. It's like, what kind of mood are we talking about? What kind of digestion are we talking about? So part of like training in breathwork is also learning the indigenous and cultural roots, the science, the physiology, the anatomy of how breath impacts the physical body. So in terms of like, yeah, digestion, beautiful question. But somebody's digestion which is overactive means that they have more fire in their body. They're not going to be doing a breathwork technique that adds more fire to their body. They're going to be doing a breathwork technique that cools down their body. So for on the other end, if somebody who has a very cool body, meaning that it's determined in what their bowel movements look like. If their bowel movements are not loose, if their bowel movements are very stuck, they're having constipation, they probably have a very very cool digestive system. So they're not going to be doing a cooling technique that's going to, double down on something that's not already working. They're going to be trying to fire up their digestion system with something that's a fiery breath. So to like kind of like circumvent your question, it's like there isn't a one size fits all answer. So styles that are cooling to the body are super slow typically. So something like breathing in through your mouth for 6 seconds and exhaling through your mouth for 6 seconds, that the slowness of that allows your body to kind of cool down. There's other techniques that are, they're called fire breath or flutter breath or breath of fire. There's different sexy names for all these different things, but there it's essentially, pumping your body really fast. So you're breathing in and out through your nose super fast, and it kind of sounds like this. And that's not relaxing. Like that's going to add fire to your body. You're immediately going to feel hot. You're immediately going to feel tingling. You're immediately going to feel sensation. Your nervous system is not going into a parasympathetic state, which is your rest and digestive state. It's going to go into a sympathetic, almost survival mode state. It's going to do a different thing. And so that's where, that breath awareness becomes really important for us, is because we have to be aware of what it is that we're trying to do. And sometimes we go and do a thing that, it works for somebody else. And yes, that works for their digestion because their body is made that way. This is how they're vibrating. This is how their body is. But to look at ourselves in a holistic way, it's going to change everything about ourselves. So when you notice, like, yeah, actually, I'm a very fiery person. I'm always doing, I'm active, and I'm like, what is your personality? Are you somebody who's like doing and active and, a go-getter, and you're probably prone to feeling burnout? That has everything to do with your breath. So now you have to realize, like, am I going to go do hot yoga to like even add more fire to a really fiery person? In Ayurveda, these are known as the doshas. You have different constitutions of, what your body is constituted of. And every season, there's a slight change in that. So certain seasons, you might be super fiery, and certain seasons, you're very airy. Certain seasons, you're very grounded. You're very much like on earth. And we all fluctuate through all of these. We are dominant in one for most part. We're dominant in one of these doshas, but for the most part, we fluctuate through different seasons. So even if you have a breathwork technique, you're like, this is my go-to, this is my jam, this is what I love. And then the summer hits and you're like, this is really hot. This is a very hot season. Summer is burning, like where I am right now. It's 110 degrees. It's freaking hot. And so like to do a burning style of breathwork is going to exhaust me. It's not going to energize me like I thought it was going to. It's going to exhaust me. I'm going to feel energetically more tired after I do this. So my body's going to take more time to recover from that, because I just added fire on fire. When you add fire on fire, you create a wildfire. So how can I still work with fire energy? How can I still work with, the energy of the summer, energy of the heat, energy of that, but manage it to a way where I'm not overcompensating, where I'm not overdoing it. So it's the balance of that. So that awareness becomes so important for us. So anytime we're doing anything, whether it's digestion or anxiety or sleep or X, Y, and Z, you have to think about what it is that is showing up in your life. So if it's showing up as very busy mind, well, are you going to do a technique that's going to make your mind more busy? If your sleep is showing up as like you're sleeping too long because perhaps you're in a hypo arousal state in your nervous system, where your body's like prone to shutting down, you're prone to kind of feeling numb, you're prone to like not caring about things. If you're in that hypo arousal state, then you're going to probably want to do something that helps upregulate, make your body a little bit more energized, but not so energized that your energy can't handle it. You're not jumping from 0 to 10. You're going to do a technique that's like a 0 to 5 or 0 to 3, or incrementally working your way up.
Mm, yeah, that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. And it makes total sense because, yeah, I'm definitely one of these people that is hyperactive and just do a lot of stuff. And I find myself, if I relax, I do like a morning meditation where I just really slow down my breathing and relax my body. That helps me balance myself out in a way and gives me more energy than to even go and do stuff because I'm not burning out as much as you said. Like, I'm not overdoing. I'm just like starting my day chill and then adding more fire to my day just naturally for who I am. Right. So, yeah, thank you so much for sharing. And it's really nice to look at yourself and your even personality. I really vibe with that because I'm a big fan of Enneagram personality typology. And I'm always like looking at, what what the personality brings. And so it's great that you're treating it very holistically, and that's why maybe you described like 33 birthwork techniques in your book, right? Because there's like so many, and it's a tip of the iceberg anyway, because you say that it's over 200. But I guess that these are the more, let's say, basics, so that people can actually take it in, because probably I'm guessing that the other ones might be a little bit too advanced if someone is a beginner and wants to just teach people how to do it, right? Because not everyone is just as experienced in breathing, which sounds funny because like everyone is breathing, but it's like someone can be
Yeah.
an experienced breather and non-experienced breather, which is, yeah, it's quite hilarious, but this is how it is, right? Someone needs to actually, because how I see it is like you can actually like get used to, in terms of your nervous system can get used to specific states of consciousness or specific reactions, right? It's the same with like emotional release when you do it, and some breathing techniques, I'm guessing, also impose emotional release. And to me, because I do shadow work as well and healing childhood trauma, I realized that I was only able to dive very very deeply after around 1.5 year of just diving into my shadows constantly, right? Because my nervous system was able to handle very big things, like for example a panic attack or whatever, that I was able to be like, oh yeah, okay, I'm gonna feel this anxiety now because I'm okay with it, right? But if I try to do it after a month of healing, going into my, shadows, I probably wouldn't handle it, and probably my body wouldn't be able to. So I guess that with the breathing is the same. You need to get used to some kind of breathing technique, and your nervous system might need to just adjust in a way that you can go deeper and deeper. So is it the case that you kind of go deeper with the breathing as well the more you practice it?
Absolutely. It's just like anything in life. The more that you do it, the better your body has the muscles to do it. And I don't mean just like the physical muscle, but the energetic muscles. For some of us, even just noticing how we're breathing right now, most of us are holding our breaths. We're not even just like breathing. We're like, oh, we're here. And if we say take a deep breath, people breathe into their shoulders. They're like, but there's no lungs in your shoulders, friend. Like there's literally no lungs in your shoulders. So for a lot of us, we're just panic breathers. You know what I mean? There's like, you don't even know how to take a deep breath, and that's important. It's like funny, but it's like it's so important because it's signaling things to your energetic body. Yes, in energy language, but physiologically, you have something in your body known as the nervous system, right? And so we've thrown that word around a couple of different times, and without giving like a whole full science class, essentially your nervous system is made of all these different parts of it. But the part that is really important in terms of breath work and breathing and just general wellness and well-being is something known as your autonomic nervous system. And your autonomic nervous system is basically all the things in your body that are automated. So when you're blinking and your heart is racing or your heart is beating and the way that you're breathing, these are things that you don't really need to think about. It's just automatically happening in your body. But for a lot of us, we've been trained to be in defensive mode. We're always like on edge, and we're always like, our body physiologically is responding like there's some type of danger. So in the autonomic nervous system, there's actually two other systems in there. There's a parasympathetic nervous system and a sympathetic nervous system. And the sympathetic nervous system is basically the body's survival techniques. Okay. And I know that like a lot of sympathetic nervous system talk like gives it a bad rap, like, oh, you're in your sympathetic state, blah, blah, blah. But it's actually a good adaptive thing that our body has. It's our way to be able to protect ourselves. It's our way to be able to survive, to create defense mechanisms, for us to be vigilant, for us to be resilient. Those are absolute great qualities. But when we're in survival mode in times when there is no danger, that's when the harm comes in. That's when the heart comes in. So our body gets triggered every time an email comes in, or somebody says something that is uncomfortable, or somebody gives you some kind of feedback. You're like, you shut down. You don't really know how to deal with that. Your body goes into panic mode. And so what happens is that you're not breathing, and that breath signals to your body that we need to shut down everything else that is a luxury. Luxury meaning like chemicals are luxury. Sleep is luxury. Good digestion is luxury. It's not that you're not going to get sleep. It's not that you're not going to digest. You are, but you're not going to optimize those things because now you're holding your breath. So for us, we have these 5 different defense mechanisms in our sympathetic nervous state. So for many of us, we go into fight, flight, freeze, fawn, or friendship mode. So fight mode is when, something happens and you feel really defensive. You're very agitated. You feel like you're confronted. You're going to argue about it. And basically your body's deciding what is my best chance of survival in this situation. So back in the day, it was literally like tigers in the jungle, and like you literally had to decide if you were going to fight. Like that was what was happening. But it's kind of like the residue, and now it's not like nobody's really fighting. It's just an uncomfortable email, and so your body still responds that way. Flight is when you want to run away from your problem. So this is all the people when you go into hypo arousal, your body's essentially starting to shut down. It's like, I don't know what to say. I froze up. I didn't know what to do. And, like it's kind of this like very like jarring kind of experience. You just freeze up. The third is the fight, flight, or freeze. So that one also kind of looks like that, like freezing, running away from your problem, or freezing. Then you also have fawning. This is a new one, and this is very, very common for women specifically. Fawning means that you become a people pleaser. So some of our defense mechanisms are to please people. So we're like, oh no, that's not a problem. Like I'll get it done. Like, oh, do you need anything more? So you're not interested in that confrontation because it's so uncomfortable. You don't want to have to communicate like what you actually need. You don't want to let somebody down. So you become this people pleaser. This is very common for women specifically. It's not only for women, but it also, it shows up a lot in women, this fawning survival technique. The last one also shows up predominantly in women is a friendship technique. So you befriend the situation even if you're not okay with it. So you start to have friends in your group where it's like, I don't want to let them down. I don't want them to bitch at me. I don't want them to say something at me. So I'm just going to like pretend it doesn't matter. So fight, flight, freeze, fawn, and friendship are these survival mechanisms. And so essentially what you're doing with breath work is to say that I don't actually have to be in survival mode all the time. I can thrive without having to always survive. And that happens not in your sympathetic nervous state, it happens in your parasympathetic nervous state. This huge thing, this huge mechanism only happens in the parasympathetic nervous state. So for anybody who's a coach, who's a healer, who's, working on shadows, who's working on, healing, who's working on money, who's working on safety, who's working on relationships, if your nervous system is going into defense mode at the sight of something that's uncomfortable, you're still not regulating your nervous system. You're not in control, you're not in charge of that. Your body's not trained to feel safe in a neutral. Your body is trained to be in this like overactive or hyper aroused. That's called hyper aroused, or hypo aroused, meaning under aroused. So either you're like over vigilant, you're over trying to solve the problem, you're like very much like, I'll fix it all, and you characterize that as a personality trait. It's like, oh, it's just my personality that I just do everything myself. Or is it because like you don't really know how to ask for help because your body doesn't feel safe to ask for help? Or are you resilient because you had to survive on your own, you had to do things on your own, X, Y, and Z? Or are you over resilient so nobody knows how to help you because like nobody's ever good enough for you, nobody's ever do like, if I want it done, I'll be the one to do it. You cancel out relationships before they have a chance to blossom. You burn the bridge before they get to burn you. You do all these things that you think is like very empowering, but it's coming from your nervous system overreacting. And on the other end of that, it's just the shutting down. So we can name it different things. We can say, yeah, that's what depression looks like. That's what, anxiousness looks like. That's what feeling numb feels like. That's what feeling worthless and hopeless and not enough feels like. So that's your body going into that hypo mode where it's again not your body not being able to be in that center state. So we name it lots of different things in clinical psychology. We name it different types of disorders and illnesses. And absolutely, that can be really empowering to be like, oh yeah, I got a diagnosis, so now I get to understand myself better from this like archetypal way. That could be empowering, but then it also sets you in a box. It makes you feel like, oh, this is just who I am. And because we love to have attachments, like we love to like know like, oh, I'm a Virgo, so I am this way, or oh, I am this type of Myers-Briggs, or I am this human design. You don't get to know yourself. You're giving your power away to archetypes that are outside of yourself without actually understanding the root of why something is happening to you, which happens from nothing else but your breath. And that breath is where you start to begin to train. So when you start to train yourself to be able to like come into this middle ground, it's known as the window of tolerance in polyvagal theory and different types of nervous system theory. It's known as the window of tolerance. This This is like the middle center spot. So you don't never land at like like at a zero. You never land at a zero, but instead of fluctuating up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, which is very tiring for you energetically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, financially, like it's very exhausting to just be like up, down. You train your body to kind of be in this window. So you're still bouncing up and down. It's just not as dramatic. It's just not as drastic. So that training for some people, it's like, yeah, one breathwork session, we are good to go. Like sometimes you do have that kind of, that experience where it's like, I'm over it. Like I'm over being hyper vigilant. I'm over being, hyper resilient. I'm over being overreactive and, trying to fix everybody's problems and being a people pleaser. You decide today, right now, you can decide that like, I don't do that anymore. But sometimes your body needs to train with you. Your mind decided that, but you have different neurons in your body. You have different neurons in your brain than the ones in your heart, than the ones in your stomach. So now all these three different types of neurons are starting to talk to each other. They're saying, yes, the mind says this thing, I'm over it. Your mind knew it before, before maybe your body did, or maybe your body knew before your mind did. It can go, the signals can go both ways. And so once you decide that, your body's essentially in training now. So tomorrow, it's kind of like running a marathon. Like, yeah, some people can just like not train and run a marathon and they're going to be good. Like they're fine. Their body's set up to do that. But some people are going to need a little bit more practice. They're going to take time to practice it longer. They're going to need to train a little bit differently. They're going to need different types of rest. They're going to need different types of, other things that are going to support them on their journey. So in terms of, what you mentioned about like, yeah, there's so many different techniques and why is it these 33? It's because there's so many techniques that require you to have a support system. That's not just like a 30-second technique that you can do that helps you calm down. The 33 in this book are the ones to start to get you into that practice. But once you're into that practice, it's kind of just like, here's how this is you starting to run around the block. Like once you start be able to run around the block, then come to train with a trainer, come to actually be able to expand your body's capacity to release all the things that are in your body that come from that nervous system and the stories that it's believed in and attached itself to. This is my identity, and this is me, this is my old story, and all the different things that we can call healing work or shadow work, or there's different language for the same thing. Reprogramming, quantum leaping, blah, blah, blah. They all mean the same thing. So essentially what you're doing is getting your body to train to be in that window of tolerance so that you're no longer in that survival mode. And that's such like a mind-blowing thing for some people, because, because we're so used to attaching our identities to some way that we were. But like, if we attach ourselves to the way that we were, then how can we be the thing that we're trying to be with the same body that is acting and behaving this way, with the same attitudes and thought processes that are this way? So energetically, you start to actually change. And it's like, oh, all this from breathing? It's like, yeah, bitch, like all this from breathing, It's like you start to train your body to be able to handle, and eventually you start to notice like, yeah, I'm not jumping up and down anymore. And I don't live here in this hyper arousal state. And for us, anybody who's been in like a hustle culture, or you are an entrepreneur who doesn't practice intuitive entrepreneurship, you're very much into like patriarchal business or colonized business or capitalized business models, what it's like to like be here, and they're telling you stories around like discipline and consistency and da da da. Yeah, discipline is good, consistency is good, showing up is good, having a plan is good, but only being so rigid in it becomes harmful. So it's like the balance of that. These things are good. Being a problem solver, great skill set to have. Being somebody who can troubleshoot and solve problems, like amazing quality to have, absolutely. But if you're always here solving everybody else's problem, then you're going to start to face a little bit of resentment. You're going to be like, oh, I'm helping everybody and nobody helps me. It's like, okay, do you have to though? Like, or perhaps this is your survival mechanism response system, and now you can train out of that. What does that actually look like for you to kind of come down into this middle ground where yeah, you're still providing support and consultation and helping, and you didn't all of a sudden become selfish and uncaring just because you're not there 110% of the time all the time. Maybe you're just there 30%, and that could be just good enough, right? So this is your body training itself to feel good enough, and that becomes really wild in that journey, because the 33 exercises that are in there are for the things that you can do for yourself. These aren't things that you necessarily need to integrate with a teacher or a therapist or a coach. Like, you can, because anytime you're doing even just like 10 seconds or 30 seconds of slowing down your body's like, we don't know what this is. We don't know what it's like to calm down. We don't know what it's like to actually fully breathe into our body. So it's like it's kind of re-triggering it to go into panic mode, even though you're like, oh, I thought I was doing restful breathing. This is supposed to be restful, but it's kind of bringing up it's bringing up the fact that, like, yeah, I thought I could run around the block, but I'm winded. I can't even like go down the street. And so that awareness starts to become trained into the body.
Wow. I loved everything that you shared. I'm just like hearing you, and I'm just like hypnotized, just taking every word that you say. I love your passion, how you talk about this. And yeah, thank you so much for sharing all that. It makes a lot of sense. And it's great that we have techniques that are simple, that everyone can use them. And I'm super curious to know, because I know that you have an offer of abundance rituals. And I'm curious to know how you link breathing with abundance, in terms of, I know that there's surely some interconnection there, and so I'm curious to know, like, how is that interlinked with each other?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. And I train breathwork facilitators, and I also run one of the world's first healing arts practitioner program, which is a 12-month situation where healers come to learn with me for 12 months. We learn in breathwork, we learn sound healing, we learn embodiment coaching, da da da. But at the end of the day, it's like, okay, cool, these tools, so what? Right? So like, why does it matter? I know how to like facilitate breathwork, or I know how to do sound healing. Why does that matter? How do I actually show up into the world and be able to use these techniques, put them out into the world, be in my gifts, and share them with the communities that I give a shit about, right? That comes from you being in this state, this window of tolerance, in this middle ground where abundance has the opportunity to come to you rather than you chasing abundance. So for a lot of us, if we kind of imagine this like one line right here, and we have this affirmation you probably hear like on the internet and whatnot, it's like, oh, I don't chase, I attract. I don't chase, I attract, right? Like, you hear this kind of like rhetoric, like, I don't chase, I attract. So this is what it looks like. If you're in this middle and you're hyper vigilant, and this is the thing that you want, if you're chasing, you're always moving out of this safety space. You're moving out of this rest and relax space. You're moving out of the space where abundance can just like naturally land to you. So for abundance, for many of us, we're in this hyper chasing state. We're in this chasing energy. So when your body gets to rest, your vibration expands. Your magnetism expands, your manifestations expand. And really advanced manifestation teachers will be talking to you about nervous system. They will be talking to you about somatics. They will be talking to you about this advanced level of letting things come to you rather than you chasing after that. This comes from creating safety in your body. So, any kind of abundance that you're talking about, and I'm not just saying like money abundance, that is absolutely one of them. Yeah, sure. Like when we think about that, but an abundance is in time, it's in the friendships that you have, it's about the resources and the opportunities and the things that just fall into your lap. And in other language we call it coincidences, but coincidences actually don't mean what you think it means. To coincide, it means when two things are in perfect vibrational match, it has the opportunity to meet each other. So to coincide is a mathematical term. When something is vibrating in one way and another thing is vibrating in the same way, they have the opportunity to overlap with each other. So when you say coincidence, you probably think like, oh, wasn't that random? But literally the word means to match each other in vibration. So when we're talking about vibration, now we're kind of moving into like a different language. We were kind of saying it in sciencey words and nervous system talk, but essentially your vibration comes from your nervous system. So if your nervous system is vibrating at an anxious, almost neurotic, manic level, then that's what you're attracting to you. If your nervous system is in a shutdown level, that's what you're attracting to. So things are attracted to similar things. So vibrationally, how is it that you feel? Do you feel safe? Do you feel cared for? Do you feel loved? Do you feel like you're enough? Right? And the answer isn't like, yes, 100 times, 100% of the time, because that window of tolerance, we said, it's a range. It's not just being in this, like, oh, I'm here and like that's where I live. You're going to flux, you're going to flow, you're going to ebb and flow within that. And so within that vibration, like you hear your vibe attracts your tribe, or your vibration, like, you can feel the vibe of a room. A vibe means vibration. So your vibration comes from your nervous system. And so imagine, even just like theoretically, if you're feeling really anxious, if you had to draw on a piece of paper what that vibration looks like, it looks like this. It's like up and down, up and down, up and down. It's like very anxious. If you're looking at something that is like, oh, I'm shut down, like I can't do, it's a very slow wave. You would be drawing like a very slow wave. So what does that center look like? That is the place where that everything magnetizes to you. That's the place where you're training your body to be able to receive the things that you actually desire without feeling like you need to chase it, because that thing isn't in an anxious vibration. That thing exists in a very like chill way. So if you're talking about freedom, if you're talking about time, if you're talking about having resources, that doesn't feel like resources. It feels like resources. That feels very calm. Travel, that's like luxury. Like money, that's like that's luxury. That's not a anxious energy. So driving down your body, driving your body down or up, depending on wherever you are, to that middle ground allows that abundance to come to you. And the way that we do it is by nothing else but the breath.
Wow, that's amazing. And you know what? I actually have had a situation recently that I can share that actually proves what you're saying, because I'm this, like, let's say, very much a doer, very much like I like to have entertainment all the time and adventures. I travel all the time and I'm just moving all the time. So for me, the best way is to relax and to calm down, right? And so I've been doing this podcast since like middle of January, so a long time now, like half a year now. And last week I was on this training, ISTA training, and I was like, okay, I'm putting off my phone and my computer. I'm not even looking at anything. I just want to be with the people and work on myself and just, be in nature and just put everything off. And can you imagine that while I was just healing and relaxing and spending time with people and dancing and just focusing on myself, the followers on my podcast, while I did nothing, right? Nothing, because it didn't even touch my phone or my computer, almost doubled. And for this whole time, it was just very slow pace. Okay, follower here and there. And then I did nothing and it almost doubled. And I'm coming back on my phone. I'm like, what the hell just happened? It's like the opposite, because I was so relaxed, because I was so in nature. I was so just in this middle ground, as you say. Like I did some work. And of course, I posted maybe, I don't know, 3 or 4 episodes while I was away. My assistants were helping me to post it. But anyway, I was just like, okay, so pretty much for the results in my life, I just need to relax and I need to put off my phone, put on my computer and do nothing, or just focus on myself and nurturing myself and nature and so on. And so that's like a real life
Mm.
example of how the abundance of, in this case, followers could come by me just literally like slowing down and not chasing anymore, just like coming into this middle ground where surely, of course, I had the intention and I was healing myself. So maybe it came from also that, because the more you heal, the more you relax, the more allow the universe to just flow rather than controlling it, right? Then things just appear in your reality and it's just a beautiful beautiful thing. But I was just like, oh cool, so that's literally the story from the last week that happened to me, that just proves like, yeah, it is true.
I
And
love that.
also it makes so much sense, because like, if you're constantly like, oh okay, I have to do this, then it's like, okay, calm down, and then you're in the flow. And if you're like super depressed, like, okay, nothing is gonna work, and then maybe you need some a little bit like pump it up and just go
Exactly.
go and align with the flow of the universe, because the flow of the universe is not hyper, or it's not like mega mega slow. It's just natural. It's just rivers. It's yeah, it's just nature. So
Yeah.
it's just been a very very nice example, and I love that you mentioned it, because I'm literally a living example of that. So That's so
I
cool.
love that you shared that. Thanks for sharing that. And that just like brings me up to, well, the style of breathwork that I train people in is called flow breathwork. And it's for a reason. It's because that flow that you just mentioned is what's missing from a lot of our lives. We are hyper attached to the project or the thing. And like you said, yeah, you gotta pick it up if you're like all down. Like it's good to have a plan. It's good to have some kind of consistency, some kind of action is important. Absolutely. Like you can't just like there's a wound to just saying I leave it up to the universe and not taking any kind of inspired action towards the things that you want. Absolutely. Yeah, you set yourself up. You're like, yeah, I have assistants, so they're going to take care of that, and I'm just going to be in what I need for my season right now. But that is a like it's a revolutionary and radical thought for a lot of people to kind of let go of the reins, or to like hold on to the rein but just with one hand. You know what I mean? It's
Oh,
like,
one finger,
how can
just
we as a
pinky.
one finger, yeah, or just like let go but have it like close by. I kind of had this experience recently too, because I was in Portugal with my teachers and everything, doing a deep dive and everything. And so my team over here at Always Play Studios, they were like helping me hold it down. I had a book launch in the meantime, and I was just like really noticing. I'm like, wow, I'm really just not like attached to what happens or what doesn't happen, and everything went fine, like nothing burned down. You know what I mean? But that's the thing. It's like, yes, you do need momentum, and you do have to care. It's a skill to care. But there's a book. It's called like The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. It's kind of like that. It's like you care, but you care about the things that matter, and you let the other things kind of just like flow. And so in flow breathwork, it's really about, it's not a still style of breathwork, it's a movement based breathwork that I've developed based on a three-part breath that is a super ancient and indigenous style of breathwork. It's known as dirga breathing in yoga, and I've added movement from my studies in martial arts and belly dancing and energetics to actually put the masculine and feminine energy back into breathing. So for a lot of us who are subscribed to this like very hustle culture, we're in a hyper wounded masculine energy. Masculine energy is great. Wounded masculine energy is not great. The divine masculine energy says like, yeah, let's have a plan. Let's have consistency. Let's go get it. Let's do that. The wounded says that if we don't do this, then we're not going to succeed. We have to keep doing this until we burn out, because go, 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 go. It's go time. That's the wounded energy. So the divine masculine says, like, yeah, let's hold this container where you're not just wishy washy, like foo foo fa fa over there, just like always floating off. We're going to need to have some kind of structure and some kind of container. So that becomes that three-part breath where it's like, yeah, you're breathing in through your mouth into your belly, breathing in through your mouth into your chest, and you're exhaling. That's the structure. The feminine energy here, the wounded feminine energy in anything that we do says it's like, do whatever you want, let it flow. And it's like, yeah, you're just running around in circles. Yeah, it's a good quality to let it flow, but like, don't be in a wounded feminine energy. The divine feminine energy says that, yes, let's play, let's be creative, let's allow room, let's express, let's just enjoy things, let's be. And when the divine masculine and the divine feminine are holding these energies together, that's when you have optimized flow in your body. So now, yes, you're doing the three-part breath: belly, chest, exhale, and you're moving your body in a way that feels intuitive. So for all of us, we have different things that we hold in different parts of our body. So energetically, a lot of people hold grief in the lower back, intuition in the stomach, heartache in the chest, burdens on our shoulders. Language is important. Like linguistically, we understand that like all these different emotions, energy in motion, are held in different parts of the body. So when we're doing a masculine style of breathing, the feminine energy, and I'm not talking about masculine and feminine in terms of girls or boys or gender or sexual orientation, I'm talking about energetics that exist in all people. So the masculine energy is like, yes, we need to breathe in belly, chest, exhale. That's the rhythm. That's the structure. The feminine says, yes, I'm going to move my shoulders while I do this. I'm going to move my belly while I'm doing this. I'm going to gyrate my hips while I'm doing this. I'm going to draw sexual circles, and I'm not going to feel like objectified. I'm going to be sensual in my body. I'm going to flow through my hips. I'm going to flow through my shoulders. I'm going to move my head this way. But am I still doing the breath? belly, chest, out. And so you, as that water, that flow energy that you said earlier, it's like that flow exists within you, and you can activate that with your breath. So if you're kind of just like being super disciplined, you miss the fact of your body that there is so much creative energy, there's so much sacral energy, so much sacred energy in your body that is desiring to be let go, and that brings your body into that center space as well. So the science language is the nervous system, but then energetically it's like there's that middle ground too, where you can ebb and flow like the waters. Like you go up and down, you go up and down, and you're energetically being okay with the shifts. You're being okay with the times when you have a lot of energy to do things, and you're being okay with the times when you don't have a lot of energy to do things. So that doesn't mean shut down everything in your life and shut down all the things and blah blah blah. It doesn't mean that, because then you're in all or nothing wounded masculine energy. It's like all or nothing. It's not like that. It's saying the divine feminine works in such a very unique energetics. Different part of the year, especially in wisdom traditions like Ayurveda and yoga, we know that different parts of the year have high energy and low energy, high energy and low energy. So for example, in the wintertime, when you see, plants going into hibernation, and the trees, the leaves are falling, and animals going, collecting their nuts and everything, because they're going to be reserving their energy for this season where there's not a lot of external energy. Why would you go against that? Why would you want to be trying to bloom in a time where the resources are low? What's nature doing out here? Nature's not blooming right now. Nature's literally going to sleep. The leaves fall because there's not enough sunlight. So the roots need to conserve that sunlight. So instead of, showy flowers, the tree says we're going to put it to where it's the most important. The sun is most important at the roots right now. So these limited resources that we have to use it at the places where it matters. Spring is a different season. You're like, ha, ha, ha. Summer is a different season. Fall is a different season where you're now harvesting the fruits of your labor. So energetically, you're also going through ups and downs. You're going through different elements that take you through that journey. So in terms of like right now, as we're recording this podcast, whatever it comes out, springtime is a very airy type of energy where you're kind of in this daydreamy kind of vibe. You're very much like in the air, you're very much in daydream. And so a lot of people feel very scared during this time, because it's like, wow, I feel like I'm very delusional. I feel like I want to leave my life and do a new thing and do this like other thing, and my identity is being questioned. I don't know if I feel the same way. It's a very kind of like up here energy. So when you're using your breath and you're using your flow with that and the energetics of the world that is out here, the energetics of earth that is out here, you can allow yourself to kind of be a little bit delusional, keeping in mind that there is a time when you're going to need to come back down. So instead of feeling like it's like taking you off the ground, and like now you're going to be in outer space and you're going to make decisions that are irreversible, you're going to be able to kind of keep in mind that, yeah, I'm actually experiencing this hyperactive moment. And so and because I have awareness of that, I don't have to panic about it. So I don't feel like I have to change my whole life and change all the things and like rearrange all of it. It's like, okay, let me just be in download season so I can download. Then when you're coming to summer season, it's fire season. And earlier when we were talking about that digestion, so fire season, you don't want to add more fire to fire season. You want to add things that cool you down in fire season. So the heat, even if you live somewhere that doesn't have a lot of heat, it's easier to see it where if you do have a lot of heat, you're like, yeah, I'm definitely not trying to do like a lot of hot things. It's time for you to do a lot of cool down types of things. So maintaining the project, simmering, still working with the fire energy, but instead of like igniting and initiating and doing big, dramatic, drastic things and starting that new project, it's like, let me just maintain the things that are already here. Let me kind of just like chill through that season. So every single season has that kind of vibe going on for it.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's really cool. I love your passion, how you're talking about it. Really, it just like opens my heart so much when I listen to you. So I have one last question to you. If people really vibe with everything that you share and they would like to buy a book or find your content, what's the best way to find you?
Hey, you can head to my website. It's called alwaysplay.org. You can find me on Instagram at Shanila.Sattar. You can train with me in breathwork, breathwork facilitator training. You can take breathwork classes on Sundays for free. It's free for the community at the Breathwork Club, and all the details are there, as well as my book on alwaysplay.org.
Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing all that. I really love this conversation. I got to know even more about breathing and how we can find our own way to breathe depending on who we are and depending on how we live. So thank you so much. It's been very valuable for me and I'm
You're
sure for
so
all the
welcome.
listeners as well. Thank you so much, beautiful people, for listening to us. And I hope that now you have even more inspiration to just breathe and to be conscious and aware of your breath because it's really important and crucial for our well being. So, if you'd like to find me, I am the Connection Catalyst on Instagram. I have some content there, some reels. You can check it out. And if you'd like to find the SoulFam podcast on Instagram, it's at We Are SoulFam. So, thanks again for tuning in and stay tuned to the next episode.